Hey guys, what's going on? LG Brands and Brands, and here's whatever you prefer me. And today I've got a. It's not exactly my build. It's definitely one that already did exist, but it's gone through some improvements. There's a lot of variations for this build, but this is what I am running currently on and off season for patch 2.4 for Torment 10 speed farming. It's extremely efficient. There are, as I said, many different variations. You can fit sages into it, so if you want to like speed farm T10, but also get as many DBs as you can fit like within an hour time period. If you're going for like DBs per hour, you can use a variation of this build with sages. You can also use it with firebirds, which is what I'm currently using. Just the 4-piece firebirds though, because it does revolve around using Tal Rasha as our foundation, and of course Wand of Woe, as you could probably guess, because Explosive Blast is on my skill bar. So the variation of this that I'm going to be showing is one that I think is personally is the best one for me, because it fits my playstyle a little bit more, and it gives me the mobility that I've always wanted. Well, no, it doesn't. It gives me good mobility, but not the mobility that I've always wanted, because I can't fit Aether Walker in there because of the AP issue that it will prove, because that would just slow down Explosive Blast a little bit. So yeah, this is a T10 Rift that I have ran uh, today. It's about 3 minutes, just under 3 minutes. It lingers on a little bit at the end because of the Rift Guardian. Uh, this is a pretty good map. There's good elite density for Ingeon proc, so I'm pretty much using the Ingeon buff for the entire Rift. Even for 3 minutes, I consider this too slow. Normally, I would get around a 2 minute something clear, like a sub 2 minute clear. Well, this was a sub 2 minute. It was almost 3 minutes, but yeah, this kind of felt a little bit laggy near the end. Like it could have been a little bit quicker, but it is still, I guess, like one rift out of what will be many to do if you're just gonna farm. Like if you're going after key fragments or death breaths and stuff like that. So the build itself, as you can probably see, we run 6-piece Tal Rasha, 4-piece Firebirds, and a Wand of Woe. We're focusing a straight. It's extremely flexible, as I said. You will notice that I don't actually have full pieces of the set, and that's because in the cube we are running Royal Ring of Grandeur, or Ring of Royal Grandeur. The name just keeps getting messed up, so everybody knows what this does. Armor, this can be changed around. You can use the I can't pronounce them. I can't remember the name of them. But the new Steady Strikers increases the potency of your shields by 100%. So if you're thinking you're dying a little bit too much in T10, or you need just a little bit more like pseudo toughness, you can have that cubed. Because that will also playing well with magic weapon deflection, which is what I use for my shield, because I still need shielding. But I'm using Nemesis Braces at the moment, just so I can pop pylons quickly, as you probably saw anyway. You can also use Hexen Pants here, or if you want to use Ether Walker, you could use the name of it, the one helm that you get from the bounty that does resource. Yeah, that'll be on screen somewhere because I can't remember it. There's really good flexibility for armors as well. For weapon, I think the only two real choices are either going to be Ether Walker or Ingeom. Mainly because this is going to be Ingeom for your, like, it's going to increase your damage output so much. And Ether Walker, sure, it gives you teleport here and there, but it's going to decrease your damage output. And it's just, I prefer to use Ingeom. And for mobility, Ingeom takes care of teleport anyway. So the build itself, this is where the main flexibility is. Say I could like put, let's see, Tal Rasha pants but Firebird chest, or like a Firebird helm and then Tal Rasha pants and stuff like that. Basically, you want your strongest pieces in these slots. So gloves, shoulders, helm, chest, pants, and boots. You want your strongest pieces in these slots of both sets that you have, but you also want to even them out because you want 5 pieces of Tal Rasha, 3 pieces of Firebird. So to make it a little bit easier, Tal Rasha gives us a belt and an amulet slot, which means I only need to slot 3 more pieces. So I use gloves, chest, and helm. And basically you just want your basic rolls: int, fight, crit, socket, and I use a white gem in there for the extra cooldown. So if my in-gem isn't up, then at least I get that extra cooldown for Explosive Blast and Teleport. For the chest piece, you want int, fight, 3 sockets, and normally I would say armor and then Explosive Blast damage, but I've kept attack speed on this and then rolled Explosive Blast damage on it because I don't really need the armor for T10. I don't take this build into Greater Rifts. I mean, I do like GR70s for like quick gem leveling. This is good in GR60 if you have the new Steady Strikers cubed, because you will need the extra toughness. But yeah, for now I'm just keeping this chest piece in case something happens next patch and we need attack speed and Tal Rasha. Belt, int, fight, or resist, armor, or life percent. I went for armor just because I'm kind of low on the armor spectrum, but normally you would have life percent. Pants, there's only one real choice: int, fight, armor, 2 sockets. Boots, these are kind of flexible, and instead you can have int, fight, armor, or meteor damage, or int, fight, armor, movement speed. I've gone for the maximum damage output I can get, bearing the fact that the int is kind of low. So it's int, fight, movement speed to save points in Paragon, and meteor damage for Tal Rasha, which isn't actually the biggest source of damage, but the meteors do help kind of melt down that first elite pack to secure in-gem. Shoulders, this is kind of a whatever you want. I have int, fight, cooldown, and explosive blast damage. You can have int, cooldown, resource reduction, and explosive blast if you want. I don't really need resource cost reduction because I'm not starved for AP whatsoever, and I'll get into why in a minute. Gloves, this is another flexible thing. Int, fight, crit for me. You can go in area damage, crit. I don't really need the area damage because it's T10 is a fucking joke, so it's like whatever. For the amulet, you can go in crit or whatever element you're mainly going to be using for damage, a crit, and then of course your socket. Bracers are completely flexible. I use War Second for the extra movement speed, and I use fire, int, fight, and crit. These could be a little bit better, mainly on the crit, like this 1% missing, big deal. Rings, I don't really think you can't really use the new Traveler's Pledge set unless you like use Tal Rasha Source, which I'm not really a fan of using because it just kind of, I feel like it almost gimps my build a little bit, especially since you're not standing still long enough to actually scratch that. So yeah, focus and restraint. Int, crit socket, int, crit socket. You can use area damage over intelligence here, or if you get ancient ones, you can use a damage roll over intelligence. It's up to you. I prefer my ints, of course. This is the what I consider to be the non-negotiable part, the Wand of Woe. So this is like the holy grail of the build. You're gonna now. This is also where you see where I've rolled vitality. That could be area damage or cooldown. Mainly cooldown. I don't really need it that much. I felt like I would go for a little bit more toughness, so I have vitality, but it could be vitality or cooldown. The damage range could be a little bit higher. 1800 is kind of bad, but either way, you want a good damage range, plus damage percent, intelligence, fight or cooldown, whatever you want, and you want a nice roll on explosive blast. I got lucky and got 100% on this son of a bitch. So yeah, and of course your socket from Ramalana Diambella gift, so that's always good. The source is another thing. This is the biggest piece that can be swapped out, I feel. I use Cosmic Strand, so every teleport that I use, I get an effective another teleport before it goes on cooldown because I get a wormhole rune. And I'm using Calamity for Tal Rasha proc for Arcane. So I get to teleport twice before it goes on cooldown, and each teleport is a Calamity teleport, which is pretty cool. Uh, you're going to want int, fight, damage range, crit chance, and cooldown. You could get away with not having fight and having explosive blast damage on there. You don't really need much more explosive blast damage. Like, you can sacrifice having it on chest and shoulders. You don't really need it on source. Maximum AP on the secondary is pretty good as well. For this version of the build, you don't need APOC either, so no AP on crit, and that's okay. Yeah, it's kind of shame I didn't get an ancient one, but with the new crafting in like last patch, it's absolutely garbage. I hate doing bounties just to be able to craft a legendary like this. So the flexible part here is you can make it a little bit more efficient in the farm in speed clears if you say use a Firebird source, and then you can use a corruption shoulder. So the corruption shoulder is like the level 77 sins. Apart from it always rolls with health and globe pickup range by 7 yards. So when you kill an elite, you're almost guaranteed to just like move 1 yard forward anyway and pick up every single globe. So that will make that more efficient. You can do that if you want. I don't really feel the need to do that, and plus I just love the extra teleport more. I'm kind of a sucker for that. But yeah, that's one thing you can do. So you can always just throw in a Firebird source and then just throw corruption up there. Alternatively, if you need a little bit more toughness or even more damage, you can use Orb of Infinite Depth. So every time you hit an enemy with Explosive Blast, your damage is going to be increased by 4 to 5%. Yep, 4 to 5%, and your damage reduction is going to be increased by 15% for 6 seconds, and that will stack up to 4 times. So you can throw that up there if you want, and that will buffer effectively all damage and toughness, which is pretty good. I don't really need that because everything just gets melted. You can use Primordial Soul as like a buffer source, like a source to use on the way to something better, because we are using elemental exposure, and that's pretty good because you're hitting with all 4 elements and effectively increasing your damage by 40% to everything that's been hit 4 times. But when you get to this point of using the build, nothing really lasts long enough to benefit from it. You can use homing pads if you want. This is just to get to your town portal. Like after you killed RG, you can just press T or whatever your warp like hotkey is and not be interrupted. Hexen Pants, you can wear these if you wish. That also means you would have to like use Firebird Source, or you can use Tal Rasha Source and Firebird Gloves. There's so much like pick and mix here. It's unfucking believable. Aether Walker, as I've already said, I would, if you are going to use this, if you really want to use this, I would say cube it. Because I can't justify giving up the Wand of Woe. I just cannot justify giving up the Wand of Woe for this. But yeah, Aether Walker's not bad. It would give you like godlike mobility that you can get on a wizard, and we're probably not going to see anything better, and that's kind of sad. So yeah, sages. You see I've got 3-piece sages here. So if you do want to go DB farming, all you really need is 2 pieces. It can be whatever you want, but you will not get Firebirds and Sages and Tal Rasha. It's just not going to work. So for Sages, what you would do is pretty much always use the boots, because Tal Rasha doesn't have a boot slot, and then you can just use either helm or gloves, depending on what your weakest Tal Rasha piece is. You swap that out for Sages. So there we go. I now have 3-piece Sages. I don't have 6-piece Tal Rasha because I don't have the pants in my inventory right now, but that's what I would normally roll. That would also free up your shoulder slot, so you can use something like Pauldrons of the Skeleton King. So that will give you a 25% chance of getting away with death, but you can also fit corruption in there easily. So easy if you use Sages, so that'll give you extra pickup. And I feel like using corruption and Sages with Tal Rasha will actually make the farming quicker for you using the Sages variant anyway, because you are going to lose quite a bit of DPS. So gems, normally, well yeah, I would recommend Bane of the Trapped, Pain Enhancer, and Wreath of Lightning. Now this is what I would consider to be the wild card. You can swap this out. Bane of the Trapped, just having like you have to get close to something to kill it with this build. Well, you don't have to. There's, of course, a secondary, like Black Hole that I can use as ranged, or Glacial Spike is ranged. But elites, most of the shit that you're going to kill, you're going to be within 15 yards of it. So Bane Trapped, it's just, why wouldn't you? Pain Enhancer, not really using this for the attack speed, more using it for the dot. Attack speed doesn't really benefit this build. I mean, it will allow you to like left click quicker for your primary, but the dot having like 3000, so effectively that's 1000% weapon damage as a dot every second for 3 seconds. That's cool. Yeah, like I said, you can swap this out for whatever you want. If you feel like you want the extra elite damage and the extra damage after killing elite, you can use Bane of the Powerful. I've tested both of them for me, and personally, Powerful seems to be a little bit slower, but then again, I could have just got a bad bunch of rifts. But yeah, you can swap that out for whatever you'd feel like. You can even swap it out for Taeguk, but of course, I'm an EU player. I play with 185 ping because I play on a US server. Taeguk doesn't really stay stacked for very long for me, especially when it comes to loading up new floors. The stacks will drop off. So I can't really justify using Taeguk, but that would also give you extra damage and armor if you can keep the stacks up. But yeah, for now I'm using Pain Enhancer. The wild card, Wreath of Lightning, can be swapped out for any of the following. That's not the right gem. Wow. So yeah, you can swap out Wreath of Lightning for Esoteric if you need more toughness, which is actually a really good gem. Or if you don't have a good Esoteric, you could use Molten Wildebeest Gizzard. I wouldn't recommend using this unless you're somehow going to use this and a new Steady Striker Braces. I haven't tested out the synergy of that. I don't think it's going to work well compared to Esoteric, but it's there. You can swap out Lightning for Taeguk, as I said. If you want more cooldown, you can also use Gogok Swiftness. So this is pretty cool. It increases your attack speed by 1%. We're not really using that. We're not bothered. Or you can just swap out Wreath for Powerful. The other gem that I was meant to have in it was Boon of the Hoarder. That's what I thought this was when I grabbed it out of my inventory. So you could put Tal Rasha pants on, or Tal Rasha sauce, or even cube the gold wrap belt. So you can have, every time you pick up gold, you get an absurd amount of armor. And if you use Boon of the Hoarder as the wildcard gem, well, that's just almost literal invincibility. So yeah, there's that as well. Normal gems are pretty standard. Emerald, 5 topaz, and like I said, 1 diamond. Paragon. So normally I would go crit damage, cooldown, crit chance, and then attack speed. For defense, I would go armor, or res, life regen. For utility, I would go resource cost reduction, just to help manage, because when Ingeom does proc, you can drain your AP pretty quickly with Black Hole with this version of the build. But if you manage it well, and it's not hard to manage it, then you'll be completely fine. So I would say resource cost reduction and area damage, life on hit, and gold find. And for core, you want to make up whatever movement speed you're missing, and then dump the rest of the shit in intelligence. Skills. So this is what I'm using, and this is unbelievably flexible. There's so many different variations of this, but this is what works best for me, and this is what I'm sharing. So primary, Magic Missile, Glacial Spike. This is going to be our cold proc. We're not really using it for anything else. I mean, the CC's cool. Like, you can hit an actual elite and freeze it for like a second and then teleport onto it and kill it, but you know, it's whatever. We just use this for the cold proc. Teleport, of course, this is our main mobility skill, and Arcane on Calamity is going to proc Arcane for us. The stun here is actually really nice, because with Ingeom you can just, you know, teleport maybe 4 times on an elite pack, it's not going to move, and it's just going to get blasted down. Black Hole Supermassive. This is one thing that swapped out quite a lot. So normally Black Hole, from what I've seen on other people, swap it out for some variation of Frost Nova. And then Magic Missile will be swapped out for either Electrocute for some fucking reason, or Shock Pulse, which actually makes more sense, Piercing Orb. So effectively you're making this cold and this lightning. The reason why I like having Black Hole is for the CC, because yellow packs to proc Injom you need to kill the little minions, and sometimes the minions will scatter, which is annoying. It slows down the kill. So you can just use Black Hole, make sure that yellow pack is grouped, or if there's like 2 packs next to each other, you can just group them all up nice and then teleport on them and get rid of them with Explosive Blast. Chain Reaction, there's no other choice. If you've got gold, if you've got cold, arcane, and lightning, you have to use chain reaction. Please don't use short fuse. It is shit. Just don't do it. Chain reaction will give you more DPS. Trust me. It's absolutely beautiful. And once you've got Ingeon procced up, seeing all those explosions, you just become a supernova. It's amazing. So AP management is mainly handled by Diamond Skin Prism. Reduce the arcane power cost of all skills by 9% while Diamond Skin is active, and this lasts 3 seconds with Ingeom up. The cooldown is reduced from 15 seconds to I think 5, I'm not too sure. I actually forgot what Ingeom kind of did on paper. But yeah, this will do absolutely what you need for AP management. You will be fine. The only way you can really drain AP, even with this, is if you just spam Black Hole everywhere when Ingeom's procced, which you shouldn't be doing anyway, and you shouldn't need to do it. You could use Sleek Shell if you use the other variation where it's just like Cold Snap or Frost Nova, and then the Lightning primary, which I forgot the name of. If you wish, that will give you a 30% extra movement speed. I'm fine with what I've got here. And the fourth magic weapon, so this will give me an extra 10% damage, which I don't really need. I'm mainly using this for the shield. So every time I perform an attack, I gain a protective shield for 3 seconds that absorbs 4% of my life and damage. Every time Explosive Blast goes off while Ingeom is in effect, this shield goes fucking crazy. So that's why I have that. Alternatively, if you want to use Prism, then you could use Conduit, so every crit will give you 3 arcane power. That should help AP management a little bit more. I don't really feel like that because I'd rather have the extra shield just for the extra toughness, because this does get eaten into in T10 if I'm in a bad position. But there's that. What I've seen people using also is Storm Armor or Scramble, so every time you get hit, your movement speed is increased by 25% for 3 seconds. That's pretty cool. I'm actually both going from magic weapon deflection to scramble here and there, and I always seem to circle back to this. My clears are pretty much the same, because when Ingeom's up, I'm just fucking teleporting everywhere anyway. It doesn't really matter. Alternatively, if for some reason your AP is really bad, you can use Power to Storm, which will actually reduce the arcane powerful skills by 3. Not as effective as APOC or magic weapon, I would argue. So your passives, these are some of them are pretty much set in stone. So Illusionist, this is so every time you do use teleport, you're not really using this for the main part. We're not using this so every time we get hit, we can teleport. We're mainly using this so every time we do take teleport, we get 30% increased movement speed for 3 seconds. Really nice. We also use an evocation. This is to reduce our cooldowns by 20%. This helps when Ingeom isn't up. It will help with teleport and explosive blast. We use an elemental exposure. Even though most of the time, you'll just find yourself teleporting on a mob and then letting explosive blast kill it. So you're only really hitting it with 2 different elements for 10%. Sometimes when a Rift Guardian's up, you will teleport and then primary Black Hole and then Explosive Blast on a Rift Guardian. That can happen all within maybe 1 to 2 seconds, and you'll get the full 20% damage buff. And the Rift Guardian, it should not live more than 3 seconds. It'll just completely be melted. Sometimes it'll only last for 1 second, even on T10. And then Audacity. There's no real reason to not use this. There's no like toughness debuff like there is with Glass Cannon. This is just everything within 15 yards. you deal 30% additional damage to them. So why wouldn't you? This was actually buffed from 15 to 30, which is why it's now used. Alternatively, other good passives to look at are Glass Cannon. This is an extra 15%, but I wouldn't use this as a replacement to Elemental Exposure or Audacity. This is only really used if, for some reason, you don't want to use Illusionist. Then you could use that, but in Torment 10, I'm not really comfortable with the toughness reduction, even though it does build up with Tal Rasha stacks and stuff like that, and you're maintaining Tal Rasha stacks so easily. Every Explosive Blast and then Teleport will keep 4 stacks up permanently if you just keep a nice good rotation, and it's so easy. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend Glass Cannon. Unwavering Will, you don't stand still for 1.5 seconds whatsoever. You never stop moving. Temporal Flux, don't really need it. Unstable Anomaly, if you're using this version of the build, you already have a cheat death with Firebirds. You shouldn't need this. You shouldn't be dying. If you are, then it could just be a toughness issue, or you could just be learning the build. But Unstable Anomaly, you could use it like on a Hellfire, and then you could like slot Tal Rasha Source because you won't have the amulet. But yeah, you shouldn't really need UA, but if you do, then go ahead and use it. Arcane Dynamo, it's not really, it can't fit into the build. Dominance could fit into the build if you want the extra toughness, because you're killing stuff so much. And every kill you get will just keep refreshing. And you can use this and the new Steady Strikers as well, and I believe that works in with Dominance, which is pretty good. Galvanizing Ward I wouldn't recommend. Cold Blood, Paralysis, and I think I said Temporal Flux already. These three you can't really use. Conflagration, sure, but things are going to be dying quick enough without the extra 6% anyway. Astral Presence, you don't really need this. Prodigy, you shouldn't be using this either. Power Hungry doesn't really fit into this version of the build because things are going to be dead anyway. And then Blur, if you want, you can fit that in. I would argue over Illusionist or on a Hellfire if you do want the extra toughness. Blur is a really, really good passive. So yeah, this is my version of this build. This is what I will be probably using for this patch unless somebody like screams at the top of their lungs on Diablo fans about how something is more efficient. I see so many different variations of this build and they are all efficient, they all get the job done. At the end of the day, it's a story of use whatever makes you comfortable, use whatever suits your playstyle. For me, having Black Hole slotted so I can get that extra CC, and then teleport everywhere around with Injom and Cosmic Strand, that suits my playstyle. But yeah, thanks for watching guys, I hope you found this informative. There are a number of wizard builds for T10. Surprise, surprise, the class got really popular with this patch on Diablo fans. Yeah, as I said somewhere at the point, I wouldn't take this into Greater Rifts. I have used this in Greater Rift 60, and I can't remember what clear was. I think it was a 4 or 5 minute clear, maybe a 6 even. So you can use this for solo GR gem leveling in Greater Rift 60. You could probably get away with 65 if you put some extra toughness in. I wouldn't use this above 65 though, that's Delseer's realm, so yeah. Thanks for watching guys, I hope you enjoyed this, I hope you found it informative, and I hope you guys are enjoying Season 5, I know I am, even though I'm not playing Season 5 right now, trying to take a little bit of a break before I get myself burnt out. And yeah, so I'm going to go back to T10. So I'll see you guys next time, and peace, or stuff. Outro, which is not awkward.